From getting kidnapped to dressing up as Michael Jackson, the Alibaba founder has a lot to learn from. Jack Ma's rags to riches story is inspiring as he rose from being rejected by Harvard 10 times to becoming China's second richest man. Ma built one of the most successful and record-breaking companies in history, Alibaba, through perseverance and experimentation. Let us dive into finding out the reason behind e-commerce giant Alibaba's unusual yet inspirational success. When he was born in China in 1964, he was given the name Yun, which means cloud, and his beginnings were extremely difficult. Jack was born at a time when entrepreneurship in China was pretty much dead. Around 90% of industrial production was in the hands of the Chinese government, and China was extremely isolated from the world, with millions in the country starving at a young age. Jack Ma developed an interest in the English language and English literature and would regularly listen to recordings of Mark Twain on shortwave radio. The problem was that he didn't really have any way to develop his English skills. But then in the 1970s, China launched a new open-door policy to try and get foreign trade and investment unless many tourists came to visit the country, and Jack took advantage of this opportunity to learn English. He would wake up at 5 a.m. every morning and ride his bike 40 minutes to a big hotel in the city where many foreign tours from Europe and the US were staying, and Jack would give them a free tour of the place. It was one of those tourists he met who suggested he adopt Jack as his English name, and from then on he was known in English as Jagmar. However, Jack needed money and was desperately trying to find work. He claims he applied for about 30 different jobs, but every single company turned him down. When Jack tried to get a job at KFC, they hired 23 of the 24 applicants, but Jack was the one single applicant they rejected. He'd failed his primary school exams twice before moving on to middle school, then his school exams 3 times before graduating, and then he repeatedly failed the entrance exams to get into university as well. But he never gave up and would always have the persistence to just keep trying until he got what he wanted. He was relentless, as he reportedly applied to Harvard 10 times and was rejected each time, but he finally managed to get into his local university instead, where he got a bachelor's degree in English. After graduating, he became an English teacher, and it was reported that he worked for just $15 per month. By this point, things were changing in China, and private enterprise was no longer illegal. When Jack saw this, he vowed that he would start his own business by the time he was 30, and he did so in 1994 at the age of 29 when he established a small part-time translation agency. It wasn't a commercial success, but it taught Jack that running a business excited him far more than his career path as a teacher, and so he began thinking of other businesses he could start. Jack's breakthrough idea came during his first trip to America in 1995. When Jack was introduced to the internet, he was fascinated. A friend told him to search for something, but Jack didn't want to because he was afraid he'd break the computer and not be able to pay for it. But his friend insisted, so Jack typed the first word that came to mind, beer, and the search engine returned results for the different beers from all over the world. Even though we belong to a country of billions, Jack noticed that there were no mentions of any Chinese products or services on the internet. Because of how closed off the country had been at the time, a seed was planted in Jack's mind that there was a huge opportunity for companies in China to do business with the rest of the world using the internet. When Jack returned to China, he and a friend created a website containing information about various Chinese businesses. It was extremely basic, but the first day they put the website live, Jack's friend informed him they'd already recognized it. He had initially planned to make an online yellow page for China, but this plan did not work out for long, and he finally set up Alibaba in 1999. A group of 18 people led by Jack Ma founded Alibaba in a small apartment in Hangzhou, China, near the end of the .com craze in 1999. 19 years after its inception, this wholesale online marketplace has grown to become the world's largest e-commerce platform, competing with Google, Amazon, and PayPal. China, unlike the United States, has yet to embrace the internet revolution. When Jack Ma returned, he decided to launch Alibaba into the uncharted waters of the World Wide Web. Jack launched Alibaba's online retail platform with a $5 million initial investment and 17 co-founders. The launch of Alibaba's online retail platforms, Alibaba.com and 1688.com, was fortunately timed. The consumer internet boom had only recently arrived in China, and the local market had not been as severely impacted by the .com crash as the American market. Other future e-commerce markets, such as India, had only recently begun to investigate the sector. After raising $25 billion in funding, Alibaba was named the world's largest and most profitable e-commerce platform in 2016. There was no stopping this company with a market value of $231 billion. One of the primary reasons for this phenomenal growth structure has been attributed to Alibaba's informal employee beneficial policy. The conglomerate has also been very active in shaping and strengthening China's entrepreneurial ecosystem, as well as launching several projects to improve rural China. Alibaba announced in 2010 that it would donate 0.3% of its annual revenue to environmental awareness and conservation efforts around the world, totaling $4.71 billion. The company has also established an independently funded group called the Alibaba Foundation to address social issues. Jack Ma has come a long way from being a lost and broke boy in China to becoming a massive success overnight. Alibaba was perfectly positioned to ride the wave of rapid internet growth in China. Its location also allowed them to operate at a lower cost. To keep one programmer happy in Silicon Valley, it takes easily $50,000 to $100,000. For that amount of money in China, we can keep 10 very smart people happy all the time. So Alibaba's operating costs were much lower when building their online marketplace. The good news for Jack was that in the late 1990s, because there was so much hype around internet companies in the US, many investors were now looking at other countries like China. Goldman Sachs invested $5 million in Alibaba in its early stages. And when Jack met with the investor in October 1999, they didn't talk about revenues or business models. They just talked about a vision of the future and what the company could become. Both men were similar in many ways, and some who observed them chatting described them as soulmates because they saw things very similarly and both liked to make quick decisions. Alibaba's marketplace site had 150,000 members in 188 countries, clearly connecting suppliers in China with buyers all over the world. Everything was working very well and things were looking great for the company. Word was spreading quickly about the benefits of buying directly from Chinese manufacturers. It meant businesses could get some really low prices. With things seemingly going well, Jack was actually thinking they might be able to have an IPO in a few years, meaning to seize the opportunity. Alibaba holds the record for the most money raised in an initial public offering. When Alibaba went public in 2014, its $25 billion IPO set records for the largest IPO ever, surpassing both Facebook and Visa. In 2015, Ma admitted that if given the chance, he would keep Alibaba private. Quote, "It's much worse now after the IPO," he said in a speech to the Economic Club of New York. "If I had a different life, I would keep my business private." After going public, Alibaba was thrust into the spotlight and subjected to scrutiny from investors, regulators, and the media. Ma was performing on a larger stage. "Not only are people watching us," he said, "but the entire world is watching us." Despite owning one of the world's most successful technology companies, Ma admitted in an interview with Charlie Rose that he doesn't know much about technology. Quote, "The only thing I can do with my computer is to send and receive emails and browse." After pressure from the Chinese government, Jack Ma was forced to relinquish full control of the Ant Group in July 2022. So what the future holds for Jack Ma still remains to be seen, but clearly his past is pretty remarkable. At Stanford University in 2013, Jack admitted, quote, "Even today, I still don't understand what coding is all about. I still don't understand the technology behind the internet." Saying, "He's a very simple guy with very stupid brains, and there are times when listening to Jack Ma, but he doesn't exactly come across as some kind of business genius." Jack's accomplishments undoubtedly indicate that he is a very intelligent man, and it appears that Jack prefers to be underestimated when asked who had most inspired him. People think he's done, but he knows what he's doing. So there you have it, the story of Jack Ma and Alibaba, how a guy who was rejected from 30 different jobs became one of the wealthiest men in the world. Pretty impressive, isn't it?